everybody, and welcome to Gerda Steiner Designs. I'm Allison Cope, and today we're going to be doing some Copic coloring with our digital images. Come on and join me. So today I'm working with a raccoon, and he's so cute. He's sitting on a little stump, and he has a little wooden sign, and I've printed something on his sign. We are also going to use Squirrel with Acorn, and both of these images are digital and absolutely awesome. You can resize them, make them whatever you want, and let's go get some coloring done. I think we're going to start with our little raccoon fella, and I'm going to start with an E70. And just so you're aware, I put happy fall, y'all. I thought this would be a cute card to send to my nephews. They are almost 3 and 4. So we're going to put a base coat down. I've used the B Company marker paper today. It's a nice thin paper and goes through my printer very easily. What I do is I actually cut them down into quarters. They come in a large pack, and I just cut them down and then put them through just piece by piece. That way I don't waste paper. I mean, the whole thing will fit through, but I just cut them down into card size panels and run them through like that on a sheet of printer paper or copy paper, and works really well. I have on some Post-it note panels here in blue, just because there's so many people out there copying and stealing digital images that I fear that if I show too much, or if I show all of my image before it's colored, then it might actually be stolen. So that's why I put little Post-it note pieces on. So we're going to go into an E71 and add some shadows. So there would be a shadow under the sign. I'm going to assume that the light's kind of coming in right from the front. So, and there's going to be a little bit of a shadow where his tail meets his tushy. We're going to put a little bit of shadow underneath his tail as well. We're going to put some in between his paws and down the sides, just a hint. Same with on his top paws. I'm going to also put them on his toes. I'm going to put some down the sides of his head, just a little bit in front of his ears and on the top of his head. We're going to go in and blend these, don't worry, it may look funny right now. And there we go. A little bit kind of by his snout there, and a little bit behind the sign, because there would be a shadow cast. I'm actually going to put a little tiny bit kind of down the bridge of his, between his eyes, maybe just a tiny bit up. There we go. I'll go in and blend that, go back to our E70. I'm going to be really rough here. Just blending in those two shades down to the areas on the bottom here. Not too much to shade at all. A little bit on his tail. All right, looking good. I'm actually going to go in with the E70 and do his inside of his ears too. Sometimes with my animals, I go in with the same fur color, base color, and then I add a little bit of pink over top. So let's go and do that. Let's put some R20. That way it's not so bright pink, it's kind of a subtle pink. You can do that with cheeks as well. So if you put your base color down, then you put the pink over top of it, it's not so, woohoo, I have pink cheeks. All right. I think we're going to go for the stump now. I'm just going to move that just a tiny bit. Let's get coloring this. We're going to use some different browns here. I'm just trying to pick. We're going to do E21. So the cut piece, which is the surface he is sitting on, we'll go back and do a little bit more work on the raccoon, but I'm going to work on the stump first. So the cut piece of the wood would be a lighter shade, right? Because whenever you see a coin of wood or the end of a woodcut, it's always darker, and then of course you have the bark layer. So we're going to put down a base of E21, then we're going to go to E23. We're just going to highlight some of the details, so those rings, I'm just going to kind of go over with my E23. I'm going to go and kind of darken and put a shadow in as well. Just going to come in around that edge. There we go. I'm going to take his shadow out just a bit there. Okay, so let's go work on the bark. I may come back and kind of play around with that, but for now, that'll do. All right, we're going to go E25 as a base to start. So just, I did overlap my two digital images, so I'm just going around the edge of my squirrel here because I don't want to color him in. And do a base here. There we go. There is the base. We're going to work on some shadows for the stump as well. So I've got an E27. So again, our light is coming in from the front. So we're going to have quite a bit of deep shadow down the side. A little bit of shadow here. Might be a tiny bit of shadow in here. And wherever that grass kind of sits over top, just putting touches in. And a little bit down the side of that stump as well. So let's go in and put an even darker shade in. We're going to go with our E29. I'm going to go back and darken some of the areas where it needs to be darkened, because obviously shadows are gradiated as well. You're always going to have some shadows that are lighter and some areas that are a little bit darker. This color here, you would use very, very little in comparison to your base color or your medium color, because there would be very little areas that would require this much darkness. So use it sparingly. That's not too bad. Let's go back to our E27, our mid-tone. I'm just going to darken some of those areas a little bit more. Pull a tiny bit of our darkest, that E29 out. I'm just kind of blending just a tiny bit more. There we go. That's a little bit better. All right, so I want to darken our shadow, the last color that we put here was an E23. So I'm going to pull our E25 and just darken the areas where his tail touches. And underneath his toesy woesies, and a little bit out here. All right, our stump's looking pretty good. Let's go on to our fall sign here. Since we've got the majority of him colored, I'm going to pull off our sticky note. Our happy fall, I want to do maybe something orange. So let's go in with a fairly bright, but we're going to work into it. We've got a YR21. And we're just going to assume that we have painted the entire sign here. You know, because the critters in the woods can do that. Ha ha ha. I'm still getting used to this new to me paper. I have a hard time finding stuff in Canada at a decent price. So when you see something that's reasonably priced, I like to give it a try. So that's our finishing R21. Let's go to, I'm going to go on R14. So let's go and do, I'm not sure. Kind of like it better. Maybe we'll just kind of do almost like a highlighting of the sign here. I'm going to do the edges to add some shading. We'll go in with a darker marker there, I think, too. But that way it almost looks like it's been swipe painted and adds a little bit more whimsy and interest. So let's go in and add our shadows. Let's try an E15 here. We have to go darker. Let's try going a little reddish with an E08. And I'm just kind of flicking it on the top. I'm going to assume that that side edge is going to be fully dark. I'm going to go back to our E15 and just kind of blend that out of the top. All right, that's kind of cute, eh? Adds a little bit more color because the majority of our creatures are going to be very natural colored. So let's finish up our raccoon. I'm just going to go and reference just for a moment and see what colors I need to grab. So as far as referencing is concerned, we're going to start with a W7 here. What I do is sometimes I even pull up images like cartoon raccoon. 'Cause sometimes it gives you a better feeling as far as color choices for something that is more whimsical like this image versus a reality version or a very detailed version of a creature. Sometimes I get better ideas as to coloring and shades and stuff like that. So if you're having trouble with colors, try Googling your image. If it's a squirrel, Google a squirrel. If it's a raccoon, Google raccoon. It's a great reference point, and it allows you to get a feeling for what maybe some of the colors may be for your image. So there's our W7 base. I'm going to go in with a W8 and add even more darkness. I'm going to leave kind of like a little bit of a highlight around the edge of his kind of mask here. So kind of at the top and bottom of his mask, just because I can. Okay, we're going to go into his tail. I'm going to kind of do the same thing and leave those edges a little bit left without color. W9, because I want them even darker, because they're quite dark on the raccoon. So I very, very rarely use my black markers or my darkest neutrals. And I'm getting a really juicy tip. So to avoid a bloop, I'm going to take off the other end of my marker. And what that does is it equalizes the barrel and it sucks in any extra ink. So now my tip is no longer juicy with ink, and therefore I'm not going to get a big bloop and it's going to wreck my image. You really got to watch it with especially your dark markers, like your dark reds and stuff like that. If you know that you've filled up a marker as well, like it's newly filled, be on the watch for a juicy tip, because you could have a little marker accident, and that's the last thing you want to have when you've just spent any amount of time coloring an image. Now I'm going to take my blender pen, which is my 0 marker. I'm just going to push a little bit of the black that I've gotten on his eyeball. Now, eyeballs are going to be white, so you could go in with a gel pen if you needed to fix it a little bit more, and that's fine. I'm going to try my blender pen. It's done a pretty good job. There is a little bit of aura of color, but it's a lot better than it was, and that's what that marker is for pushing color back into your paper. I think we're going to deepen and darken him even more, because he's not quite dark enough for my liking. So we're going to go back to the E70s. This is an E74. We're going to see if this paper is going to allow me to do this. The E70s appear to be very grainy to me on this, the B Company paper. Yeah, it's different to me. I think we're going to darken his area between his eyes too. I think we'll feather in. I have to put in a little bit more shadow down here underneath, and I think we'll do his paws as well. Put in the shadow under his tail. Yeah, he definitely needed a little bit deeper color. I think I'm just going to color in underneath there. Get a flick color. Okay, so I need to go back to my next lightest, which is my E71. Goodness, I keep popping the opposite ends of my... Alright, so this is the lighter of the two. You may have to really work this color, because I'm not particularly liking how my E70 markers are playing out on this paper today. So I'm just going over some of the areas where we've added our darker color. Okay, that's a little bit better. I think we're going to darken this, and I'm going to leave the top of his snout definitely lighter. We need to go in and fix his nose. I'm going to go in, surprisingly, with a W10. Now, I'm going to use a white gel pen to add a little bit of a shine mark to his nose, so I'm not going to worry about leaving that, but you could, leaving that white space. So there's his nose. Not too bad. Not totally liking the top of his forehead, but you know what? Sometimes you just kind of have to live with it. All right, let's work on our little squirrel here. Maybe we'll work on the acorns first. So let's see. Start with an E31. Let's see if we can move this into frame here. Give me 1 second. I have it taped to my desk. All right. Okay. E31. We're going to do the base of the nut first. So it depends on how ripe you want your acorns to be. If they're not ripe, then they have like a greeny tone to them. And if they are ripe, they are much more brown in color, especially their caps. So we're just getting their bases. And just making sure I get the right part of the acorn on that little fella, the one that's tucked in behind. Okay, so there's an E31. We're going to bring in, oh geez, E33 and start to add the shadow and that variance of color. So remembering where your light source is kind of located. Like I said, doesn't have to be perfect. And you can always go in with a pencil crayon, colored pencil, and add a little bit more shadows, especially in the tinier areas. That way, I mean, you can try with the Copic markers, but sometimes you just need a little bit more finer point. I've got my E35, and I'm going to add a little bit more darker shadow to some of the ones that are overlapping. There'll also be a shadow underneath their cap too. So, all right, let's go in and do the caps on them. I'm going to do an undertone of kind of a mossy green, I think, before I color them brown. So let's put in a base of a G43. I'm just going to put it a little bit on. I'm not going to put it on the whole cap